Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. Well, I should say happy holidays, right?
Say whatever you want, man.
I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
All right. Well, we're going to cover everything anyway. We know that the holiday season isn't just about Christmas. It's about a lot of different things. And the minute that we find a really good Hanukkah or Kwanzaa-themed horror movie, we will definitely be doing it here.
Absolutely.
There's got to be a good Ramadan. I feel like some horror movie themed around the fact that you can't eat has to be.
I mean, that sounds like a horror movie, just that premise.
I hesitate to even say this out loud because I feel like it's $1 million idea. Maybe I'll edit this part out. We'll see. So we decided to do something a little different. You know, we have been oftentimes scraping the bottom of the barrel for these Christmas movies, although interesting ones do keep popping up. This time, we realized that there are quite a few fun little Christmas shorts out there, especially with the proliferation of the internet. These are things that any of our listeners could go out and watch after we're done talking about them, or even before we start talking about them.
Yeah, we could even post them on our site and you could watch them and enjoy them with us.
Let's not go that far. Come on. That would be too easy. You'd have to dig like us. Well, no, that's exactly what we're going to do. If you go to our site, you'll be able to see links to all of these movies that are out there. All of them are relatively short. None of them, I think, is any longer than 15 or 20 minutes.
Right.
And a couple of them are just a couple minutes long, but we're including them anyway because they're kind of fun. We scoured several. I mean, there's a bit out there for these Christmas shorts, and they all vary in quality. They all vary in creativity. That's kind of what you get when you go to YouTube, right? So
yep.
We tried to find the 6 most interesting ones that we ran across that other people seemed to enjoy that had relatively good production value and some creative thought behind them and were varied. We didn't want 6 Killer Santa shorts.
Right.
Because there's a ton of that out there. So we limited it to 2. and the rest of this is going to be, I think it's a good mix. I think we came up with a really cool mix this year. How about you, Craig?
I do too.
So let's start off with the first one. Interestingly enough, my wife and I just got done watching a documentary on Netflix called Tree Man. And this is about people who drive to New York. Apparently, there are very few New Yorkers who actually set up Christmas tree sales places, Christmas tree, what do you call them? Stands.
Lots,
whatever. They're all from out of state. So in New York City, there's this guy who drives down 500 miles from Canada, and he sets up his little Christmas tree stand, and that is his family business. He's away from his family for a whole month. So it was interesting that somebody had this idea to include the Christmas tree in a horror movie. What happens to these poor trees when they get shipped in from across the country, and how does it traumatize them? And how could they perhaps get their Treevenge? and that's exactly what this thoughtful horror movie does. It's called Treevenge. And when it started out, were you getting shades of recognition just from the score alone?
Oh, gosh, I don't even remember the score. But what I liked about this one is that it totally had kind of a 70s low-budget horror movie feel. It's from 2008, and it was directed by Jason Eisner, who did a segment in VHS 2. I'm not sure which one, and he also worked on Hobo with a Shotgun. And this one, it pops up with the music and a very 70s-looking title, and the footage is kind of grainy. It kind of looks like a low-budget horror movie from the 70s. And it was very Christmassy in the very beginning, and so I was into it from the get-go.
Well, it panned out across Christmas trees out in the fields, right? Out in their natural habitat. And this music that was playing was ripped directly from Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's this idyllic footage of these snowy trees in the field, and I didn't recognize the music at first, but when I went and did a little bit of reading about it, I saw that too, and I was like, oh yeah, that was the Cannibal Holocaust music. And it's fitting. It works.
It is, and thematically it works. I mean, it's sort of the idea is that here these outsiders come into all these trees that are perfectly happy living out alone in the woods away from civilization. They chop them down, they bring them, and then they stick them in their house. And it's funny because you never really get this sense of if trees were like living and could talk, what horrible things we actually do to them at Christmas time. Yeah. But this movie makes sure you know, and it's total tongue in cheek. It is hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny because you see all those trees, and then you see a guy with an axe, like in a very ominous way, like in a horror movie kind of way. Like the baby tree is like quivering and
making little chirping sounds.
Yeah. Apparently, they're not actually speaking out loud in a way that human beings can hear them, but they can communicate with one another. And one of them's like, "Oh, I wish I'd stayed in school." And
that's right. You get little subtitles at the bottom, and all you hear is this. It's so funny.
Gosh.
Well, these guys
it's hilarious.
Yeah, they come in. It's so funny because they're and it's like these are the most brutal tree rippers down of all time. It's like they're like F you trees, basically like coming in and like taking a chainsaw to them and taking an axe to them and yanking them around. It's hilarious. These guys get a little too into their work, and then they go and they bring them to one of these places where they sell trees, and it just takes you through the whole process. So it's kind of like all these little trees get taken home, and then we see what happens once they've basically had enough in each of their environments.
The funniest part about this is the subtitles, because you get these little like squeaky noises from the trees, but the subtitles are just hilarious. Like when the people are cutting down the trees, they're like, "They're killing us all! What did we do to deserve this? What did we do to them?" And it's just funny, like it takes something, that we just don't consider at all and makes it funny, like they cut down all these trees, and then the ones that aren't desirable enough, like just get burned, like it's like a holocaust of trees. And then people come and buy them and set them up in their house, and just, little things like this family buys a tree and they go to set it up and they put it in the Christmas tree stand and they start screwing in the screws for the Christmas tree stand. Like the trees are like screaming. It's mean, but it's funny.
It's well shot too, It really takes the cinematography pretty seriously, as though this were a horror movie, zooming in on the screws and twisting like a scene from Saw or something like that. But then I think is it the family where the first kill happens, where the girl stands up, they're unwrapping presents under the tree, and the girl stands up in front of it and goes, "I got a doll," and the tree just grabs her. It's like its branches wrap around her and pull her in, and just blood starts flying out everywhere like it's eating her.
Tons of blood.
Too much blood, but it's so fun. Spraying all over the family.
And the tree throws its star like a ninja star into the dad's neck. And then it cuts to another family, and they're opening their presents, and like blood starts dripping down on their presents, and they're like, "What's going on?" And they look up, and the cat is dead in the tree. Like the tree has killed the cat.
That's right.
What's the funny, what I liked and really appreciated about this one was that it wasn't afraid to like really go out there. Like it's really gory, but there's just lots of really crazy stuff going on. Like when people are still like putting their trees together and stuff, like this one guy has like dug a hole out of the trunk and is like lubing it up. Like,
yeah, that was
like,
so.
And it's this skeezy guy. He's got this big grin on his face, and you can totally tell like what he's planning. Like it's so gross.
I think my favorite though is the couple. They're like making out on the sofa, and they've got the tree behind them or something like that. And the girl makes some suggestion. I can't remember what it was, and he goes, "It's Christmas. I just want to fuck." like, okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, the trees grab them, and the tree grabs them, and then you get a direct nod to, again, one of these old Italian horror movies from the 70s, Zombie, where we have this slow motion kill where a woman gets slowly pulled against a splinter by a zombie that is going straight for her eye.
Uh-huh.
And in this case, the tree branch piece starts going slowly into her eye, and then it comes out of her eye and like out of the other eye, and then out of her mouth, and then it goes across to his eye, and it's like bringing them closer together by weaving itself between their eyes and their mouths until they come together at Christmas time. It's actually pretty heartwarming when you think about it.
Well, in the end, I mean, it's just total mayhem. Like, people are running in the streets, and like trees are killing people in totally grotesque ways.
Kills a baby.
Yes. Like, I feel like that's the cap. Like, they saved that for the end, where the tree stump just crushes a baby's head. But there's also like a blink and you miss it moment where a tree is raping a guy behind a snowbank. It's horrible. It's horrible. And that's it. Like, it just ends on all that mayhem. But I thought it was a really clever idea, and I loved the 70s vibe of it, and it was goofy and fun. I really enjoyed, like, it's potty humor. It's tasteless. It's gross. It's totally tasteless. But there's a couple of these that we're going to talk about. And there's one in particular that I thought, oh my gosh, this was actually kind of a really good idea. They could have made a feature-length film about this, but this one I think just works really well in short form.
Yes.
You know, just give us, I don't even remember how long it was, 10 minutes or, you know, it's really short, and it worked really well in that medium, and I just thought it was really clever.
Yeah, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes goes on far too long. You know, there's only so far you can take this concept of these inanimate objects. You know.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I agree. This worked really well as a short. I do not want to see this expanded into a full length. You'd have to do.
No.
Yeah.
No, but, you know, it totally seems like something Troma would do, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's very Troma.
Anyway, super clever. I recommend it. Take a look at Treevenge. It's my go-to word is cute. It's cute.
It is cute.
It's cute. Watch it.
We're going to be saying that about a lot of these. Tree rapes a guy, and another guy loops up the tree. Yeah. Was it the same guy who was looping up the tree?
I don't know. Maybe. I hope so.
Back and watch. Yeah, me too.
I hope it was the same guy.
Well, speaking of cute, I don't know if you call the next one cute or not, but it's fun. It's just a couple minutes long, and it's called The Winter Stalker. And it is simply a short, almost like a kind of visual poem.
It's just a few minutes.
The idea is that Santa is alone in a cabin, and, you know, Santa watches you, right? So Santa, many people could say, kind of like Elf on the Shelf, right? Santa is a bit of a stalker himself. And so it takes that idea and runs with it a little bit and says, well, what if Santa really were a stalker? How would everything that we know about him, you know, having his list and people writing letters to him and stuff, how would all that really play out then?
Well, what song is that? Is it Santa Claus is Coming to Town? That's he sees you when you're sleeping, He knows when you're awake. Yeah. It totally plays on that. Like, it's just really dark, and I appreciate when you take something innocent and just put a dark spin on it that totally makes sense. Like, the Santa is writing letters back to these people, and he's like, you know, I watch you when you're sleeping, right?
And in the meantime, we're hearing like voiceover, and we're seeing quick, grubby clips of, you know, again, it looks like he's in a tool shed or something like that by candlelight, with his hands dirty and messy and everything gross, you know, scratching all this stuff out.
It's just deliciously nasty. Like, there's imagery where the milk from the milk and cookies, like, gets splashed up on people's faces.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it goes totally,
to a few places like that.
It's totally like a cum shot. Like, It's so nasty, but it's hilarious.
It is.
And like, it's so brief, but it's really pretty artfully done.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's well shot in those, just those 3 minutes or however long it is.
Well, it reminded me a lot of a short that was really popular on their internet for a while that I think even won an Emmy or something, starring Bill Oberst Jr., and it was called Don't Take This Lollipop. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's a site that you go to. It's called, and you should go, don'ttakethislollipop.com, and you click on the lollipop anyway, and it tells you we're gonna give us access to your Facebook profile to watch this short, and then it sticks stuff about you and your friends into the short in the context of this crazy psycho guy who's coming after you, basically.
Oh, that's funny.
It's really cool, and this is almost I would say in many ways ripped directly from that. It has a similar type vibe to it and a similar style of shooting. But again, I don't want to downplay this one. It's quite good. But then the ending, right? The ending of it is still like, well, it's still Santa delivering presents.
Yeah.
They still get their present. They get what they wanted, and then
yeah.
That's it. It's not like he comes and murders anybody.
No. It's funny. It's just a nice, funny take. I mean, it's just looking at the whole mythology of Santa from a different perspective, and it makes sense. I mean, that's what makes it so clever, is that if you think about it, this creepy guy that watches you all the time and knows what your deepest desires are. And it's funny.
He'd be going a little crazy, I think. He'd have a big bird, and let's just put it that way. He would end up pretty twisted by the end. This movie makes that argument. This is actually how he is, right? You still get your presents at the end.
Be.
You just don't need to know how the sausage is made.
That's right.
The third movie that we reviewed is it's one of the most well produced films, I think, that we had. I felt anyway. It's just as far as lighting, as far as pacing goes, characters, the acting, and everything. I really enjoyed it, and it's a lot more comedy than the other two. Well, the other two are quite comedic. Let's just put it that way. But this one is more almost a little slapstick in some ways, and that is called Humbug.
2016,
fairly new, right? 2 years old, with a female writing and directing and starring team with this. I actually went to their YouTube channel thinking that maybe they had a lot more of these kinds of shorts that they've done, and I don't think they've done anything since like a year or two ago, and they only have maybe half a dozen things up there. But I was really curious to see what else they did, because I thought the concept behind this was cute. Again, cute.
Yeah,
and clever.
So it starts out with this for lack of a better word, goth girl, and like, she obviously hates Christmas, and she's like sketching in her sketch pad and like sketching decapitated Santas and stuff, and she like colors the picture with her own blood. Like, when you've only got 10 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever, how long it is, you really gotta, nail the character right away. So, so she's, cutting herself and coloring her pictures of Santa with her own blood. And there's loud Christmas music playing next door, which pisses her off. So she goes next door. Her neighbor is this cute, perky, blonde girl, who's super smiley, like over the top, ridiculously cheerful and happy, and
yeah, she's the embodiment of Christmas cheer.
Yeah, right. And she tries to bestow that Christmas cheer onto the grouchy neighbor, but when the grouchy neighbor is just having none of it, she tases her.
All right, we'll do this the hard way.
and then ties her up in Christmas lights. And then I remember she tells a story about an old man.
That was the night old man Yates knocked on our door. We knew him as the jolliest man on the block. He brought us a peppermint icebox pie every year. So that's what Mama was expecting when she opened the door. But that's not what he brought. Merry Christmas, she said. And I will never forget the way he looked. He looked different, like all the joy had been sucked out of him. And the thing he was holding, it was the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. It was a...
Never mind, I don't care.
The other funny thing about this story is that as she tells it, she takes a sip and sets it from a thing of whiskey that she offers the girl that she doesn't take. So she takes a sip from it, and as she sets the bottle down, you see that it's Old Exposition whiskey. I thought that was
it's hilarious. The cheery one tries to give the grumpy one some eggnog, and she won't drink it, and so she force feeds it with a funnel.
It's a 3-step process, actually. She force feeds her the eggnog with the funnel, and then she tries to get her to sing. She breaks one of her fingers in a nutcracker, which makes her sing. And then she goes, okay. And then she climbs on top of her and just starts French kissing her. And
yeah, there's some hot lesbian action.
I was like, whoa, okay. And then suddenly the kissing turns into sucking. And I thought, is she going to bite her tongue off? You know, is it going to get that dark?
That's what I thought too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But as she pulls away from her, it turns out there is a creature, the Humbug. She's basically going through this ritual to pull this humbug out of her, and it looks like a giant black sperm or something from Alien or something, I guess.
It's gross, but it's I don't know, it's funny. Like, I wouldn't go so far to say it's scary, but it's funny, and it looks good. Like, the effects are pretty good. Like, she pulls this gross thing out of her throat, and then the mean girl is cured, and she loves Christmas too. And so they go caroling together. And if I remember correctly, and I may be wrong, but like, they go caroling together, and I feel like the mean girl still has like the blood crusted around her lips. Whoever they go caroling to is also a humbug and slams the door in their face, but they're like, that's okay, and they hold up the taser. Like, here we go.
Doing it all over again. Oh my gosh. I thought this was hilarious. And what a clever idea. Like, I mean, it's truly original. I've never seen anything like this before. It's really cute.
It is. And, you know, I have to say, you know, you and I both, one of the, actually, I think the next one we're going to talk about is All Through the House, which is the one that we're going to talk about is actually a remake of a short that comes from an anthology. What's the anthology that it comes from? Do you remember?
Tales from the Crypt, the original movie from the 1970s.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. And it stars Joan Collins. And the whole way that this episode was inspired was, I really I've never seen that original Tales from the Crypt movie, which I can't believe. And we're going to do eventually, which is why we didn't do the Joan Collins version this time around. You know, sometimes short form horror, it just can be really, really fun. And we've done 2 or 3 at least Christmas anthologies, and we've done Halloween anthologies, and we always really enjoy them. And it's not that I'm sure there are others out there that we haven't seen, but I guess we were just feeling kind of lazy, and we just kind of decided to put our own together this time around. But I'm glad we did, because I do. It's just kind of fun to get, you know, a complete story in 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, and I feel like in that form, good or bad, you don't, you know, like, if it's good, you're like, oh, that was so much fun. If it was bad, you're like, well, it was only 10 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't waste a lot of time. It didn't take too much time out of my life, which we can't say about a lot of full-length movies we've had to do on this podcast. It's so true.
Humbug was this was an example, I think, of a good one. A really cute, clever idea, you know, playing on the whole bah humbug and making it an actual entity. You know, who knows? Somebody could have maybe made a full-length feature and maybe it would have been good. But I just, you know, in this short span of time, it was cute and it was funny and it was gross and
the acting was good.
Yeah, the acting was good. The production was good.
Well, and it was just, you know, again, when you have a short, you only have so much time. You really need to make every second count. And what was great about this one was how unpredictable it was, right? I mean, you know, something like Treevenge, you get the idea. You know, you're just going to see a bunch of people getting murdered by trees, and that's going to be it. But in this, like, every second, you're thinking, where is this going? You know, and it surprises you by the end. It surprised me anyway. So I think that takes a lot of talent.
And I also like seeing these people who don't have the advantage of a big budget. They're financing this themselves, which means, or at least I assume so, I don't know, but they're financing this thing themselves. They're probably shooting it on, handheld cameras, or at best, some not studio level cameras, but with lighting and set prep and costuming and good acting. They can really do a lot, and it really showcases talent that we might not get to see otherwise, and I just really enjoy them. I spend a lot of time watching horror shorts on YouTube. There are so many, and some of them are really good, and some of them go on to inspire feature-length films. Every year in my class, my English class, we do a unit on horror fiction, and I show them these shorts, and one of the ones that I have shown for years is Lights Out, and that got picked up and got turned into a big budget Hollywood film that I haven't seen, but the original short was really fun. And so I just like to see, kind of, maybe nothing will ever come of these low budget filmmakers, but sometimes this is where they get their start, and I just like to see these people who are passionate about what they're doing have a forum, and with the internet now and YouTube, they have a platform, and that's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, actually. We couldn't do something like this, 15 years ago.
Right.
Couldn't have found, who watches shorts 15 years ago? You'd have to go to like a film festival.
Right.
You just have to be totally into this sort of thing, and to seek the stuff out. And now you can go on and you can watch these, and you can find other ones, and it's spend a whole day going down the dark rabbit hole of YouTube and Vimeo. The good ones are on Vimeo.
The good ones are on Vimeo. That's true. There are some really good ones there. Okay, all right. Moving on to All Through the House. As you mentioned, this is a remake from the original anthology film from Tales from the Crypt, and the remake premiered in the first season of the TV series on HBO, Tales from the Crypt, which, as a kid of the late 80s and 90s, Tales from the Crypt was like crack to me.
Oh my gosh.
I loved it so much. It was scary, but it also had this great vein of dark humor running through it always.
Mm-hmm. Always these famous directors, high quality production value, famous people in
Yes. That's exactly it. And I was watching this last night, and I was watching the credits, and I was specifically watching the opening credits because I couldn't remember the name of the main actress. And her name is Mary Ellen Trainor. She is such a recognizable face from the 80s. She was the mom from The Goonies. She was the mom from Monster Squad. The screenplay for this was written by Fred Decker, who did the Monster Squad. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis. Like so many crazy famous people involved in this. It's so fun. I love this. Like I said, it's the holiday season. We're busy. I watched the first half of these shorts last week, and then last night I was running behind, and so I made my partner watch the rest of them with me, and this is one of the ones that we watched, and he really enjoyed it too, and he's not a big horror fan. The premise... It's so wacky, and that's what I love about Tales from the Crypt. It opens up and some great Christmas carol playing over the credits, and it's panning through, this idyllic snowy scene, and then into the house that's totally decked out for Christmas. It's so Christmassy. It leads up to the mom, Mary Ellen Trainor, murdering her husband with a fireplace poker.
Yeah. Just comes up behind him and says, "Merry Christmas, darling," and whack over the head.
The guy that plays her husband, he's famous too. I mean, every face you see in this, except for there's a little girl. I don't know her from anything, but...
Oh, I'm sure she went on to do great things.
I'm sure she did too. But this woman apparently is murdering her husband for his money, and she has a lover. And it's so silly. She calls her lover and leaves a message on his answering machine.
Darling, It's Elizabeth. I know you told me not to call, but I just had to tell you. It's done. I did it. It's all ours. The money, everything. We're free. Merry Christmas, darling.
It's total cornball.
It's so Tales from the Crypt. Like, you know, like, nobody in their right mind would do that. It's the stupidest thing you could possibly do would be to record your confession on an answering machine tape. But she does. But while she's trying to drag her dead husband out to throw him down the well, because apparently they have a well.
Another bad idea, but...
my partner... God, it's so funny. My partner was like, ew, don't throw him down there. You have to drink that. Oh, God. But anyway, while she's dragging him out there, we hear on the radio that this lunatic has escaped from the loony bin and has stolen a Santa suit and has killed several people in that area. And then he immediately shows up, and it's just mayhem. Like, and it's just so fun. It's so fun. And scary.
It is scary. Yeah, that's right. But the one thing that keeps it from being 100% scary is that it's really played up for cheese. And I'm actually pretty surprised because Tales from the Crypt's kind of like Twilight Zone, you know, in many ways. There's always a twist at the end, and they always go in all these different directions. Sometimes it's a little closer to sci-fi. Sometimes there's a supernatural element to them. Sometimes there's a comedic one. And this one is definitely more in the comedic vein, where this woman, she's a good actress, and she plays really serious. But if you only saw her in this movie, you wouldn't think her capable of playing serious because she hams it up so much. I mean, it was clearly a choice. And the villain, it just looks terrible, you know. He's got wily eyes and this chubby face and these bad teeth, and he's your classic textbook comic book killer escaped from the mental asylum with an axe.
And he is, you know, I wouldn't say he's like a huge actor or anything, but he's well known too. I don't have his name written down, but you and I are old enough to remember L.A. Law. That show featured a character who worked like in this law firm. I think he was like a clerk or whatever, and he played a character with special needs, and that's this guy. And he just he just looks, he's so crazy-eyed and goofy looking, but he is just a lunatic. It's not like he's menacing. It's not like he's stalking her around. Like, the second he shows up, he attacks her and they fight, and there's all kinds of craziness going on.
Well, and there are a lot of inside jokes too, which is, you know, something. You've got Fred Decker behind the helm of the writing, and this guy just has a love for the genre, and, you know, goes back, and he's done what he did, Night of the Creeps, which was kind of a throwback to a 1950s style sci-fi horror film, and he throws in a lot of these small Easter eggs. I don't know if you were ever a fan of reading the comics. The reprints came out like in the... Well, a whole bunch of reprints came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and I ate them up, and I have almost the whole series at home.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I got really into the history of these horror comics, and the guy who did the horror comics, the editor and kind of in charge of the whole deal, kind of like the Stan Lee of the 1950s horror comics, was named William Gaines, and he started Mad Magazine as part of his whole empire, and that's the one thing after the horror comics kind of got booted off the shelves because parents couldn't stand him anymore. That's the one thing that kept him going and then made him even more successful. So anyway, long story, but if you listen to the radio, you hear that they're in the Gaines County area. Mm-hmm. And when the guy, the policeman, calls them up on the phone, he says, "Mrs. Kamen, this is Sergeant Feldstein." And these are writers, editors. Feldstein, I think, Harvey Feldstein was either a writer or an artist for them. And Dean Kamen was a writer as well for Tales from the Crypt. And he stuck those little things in there too, which is
That's
really
great.
cute. You know, it's just a fun little short all around.
It really is.
And again, it's like you really don't... I mean, the situation she's in, at one point she's locked herself in the closet and you think she's fine, but the real problem is that there's a daughter upstairs.
Right.
And she's excited for Santa to come. And so this guy dressed as Santa starts climbing up the trellis while this woman's locked herself in a closet. So now she's got to get out of the closet, but now she can't get out of it.
Right.
It's just a comedy of errors of her trying to escape him and then turning around and trying to save her daughter, which is typical, of these horror comics. There's always a morality to them. This woman does something bad, and so this is her punishment, which is, again, what kind of separate. This could have been a killer Santa just terrorizing a family. It could have been this simple home invasion thing, but it's this woman getting what she deserved, basically.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind this one.
And you've talked about that a lot when, on the podcast, how these Tales from the Crypt, and, there's all kinds of them, Tales from the Vault, there's all different ones, but they're morality plays, and it's usually about bad people who get what's coming to them. And, this is precisely that, and it's a lot of fun. My favorite part, I think, was when the Santa first attacks her. She immediately runs inside and calls 911, and they're like, okay, well, where are you? And then she looks outside and sees her dead husband that she's killed and realizes that she can't have cops coming to her house.
Yeah, that was clever.
Which I thought was so clever, funny. Right? Yeah, and then I don't remember if then she hears on the radio or if the cops tell her that this psycho has been killing people with an axe, and she gets this idea, and she goes. Oh, they fight. She and Santa fight, and she knocks him out, and he's knocked out in the snow. And so she goes out with the axe and axes her husband, and it's just funny. It takes her several swings, but she eventually gets him. And I just like these twists, that could have worked out so well for her if she had won. Yeah. If she had won, it would be so easy to say, oh, the psycho killed him, and it would have, nobody would have thought any different. But
serendipity for her.
She doesn't win. The Santa gets to the daughter, and the mom, after she breaks out of the closet, runs upstairs, and nobody's in her daughter's room, so she runs back downstairs, and she's so relieved to see her daughter standing down there. But then the daughter's like, look, Santa came. And she pulls Santa out from the other room holding his hand, and the mom is just screaming, no, no, no. And Santa goes, naughty or nice? And then it just, extreme close-up on the mom's face screaming, no! Oh, I love it. I've seen that one a million times, and I love it every time I see it. It's good. It's a lot of fun. Check it out.
It is great. Oh, and Mary Ellen Trainor at this time was Robert Zemeckis' wife.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, apparently. I don't think she is anymore, but at the time she was. I think he's had a few.
Yeah, he has. All right. What's next?
All right. The next one that we watched was called Do You See What I See? Mm-hmm. And it opens up on gal coming over to smoking outside of a house and walking into it's like a suburban neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Things are decked out for Christmas, and she goes into the back and she meets a guy who's in the back kind of grilling, who's half dressed in a Santa outfit, and there's a Christmas party going on inside, and they have some banter back and forth.
You don't find this out right away, but eventually you figure out her name is Sloane, and she is going to her sister's house for a Christmas party, her sister Jessica. And Sloane is the kind of
Janine Garofalo.
Yeah,
of the
the smoking, cynical one. And Jessica is the perfect suburban one. And when Sloane gets there, her brother-in-law Chris is outside in the Santa suit, smoking weed, and they smoke weed together or whatever. Then the wife Jessica comes out and she's like,
Chris, that's just a rental. We can't afford to have it smelling like weed.
It already smells like ass, Jessica.
I just thought that was such a funny line because, those rented Santa suits have to be so disgusting.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
No.
Even worse than any other costume because they've got to wear them for a while. You got kids climbing all over.
Right, they're probably covered in pee and they're very disgusting.
Usually fat, sweaty people like me in them anyway to start out with. So
like you. Okay. But Jessica, the good one, is hosting an ugly sweater party. God, there were just some good lines in this one. I actually really liked this one. This is the one that I was talking about before when I said this one maybe actually could be developed into a feature film.
Yeah.
And Jessica says something like, she looks around, it's not snowy, and she looks around and says,
I wanted a white Christmas this year, but I guess that's not happening.
You're having an ugly sweater party, Jess. It's about as white as it gets.
Oh God, it's so funny.
It's got this sort of hip dialogue that actually works. You know, it's a very modern sensibility, young, 20-somethings.
You see from the very beginning that it appears like Sloane is being followed by somebody. Like you see like kind of a Michael Myers-esque menacing presence like behind her, kind of out of focus as she's approaching the party. And then they have the party and everybody shows up in their, ugly Christmas sweaters and stuff. And it's very typical. And there's, family tension between Jessica and Sloane because Jessica's trying to hook Sloane up with some guy, and Sloane is just sick of Jessica interfering in her life and blah, blah. But meanwhile, we also see that somebody has picked a lock and gotten into the party and is down in the basement, and some guy gets sick on eggnog and goes down and is throwing up, and he gets his throat slit, and it's good production value. Like it looks good. And some stupid girl up at the party's like, I talked to a psychic and they said that I'm gonna meet a tall dark stranger. Ha ha. And it basically just becomes kind of this slasher for a second, but it goes by so fast. Like, Chris goes downstairs, and you're not sure if he gets killed, but then somebody else goes down to look for him, and he definitely gets killed. And then the killer comes up, and the girl who was going to meet the tall, dark stranger gets killed right away. And then it's just a massacre. Like, it's just this guy in, like, a snow mask, a ski mask, just stabbing people left and right, and people are running out of the party.
And I kid you not, Craig, about after the first murder and the killer's like, I don't know, bundling him up in the bathtub or doing whatever he was doing in there, and we saw him, I was thinking, that's interesting that he has glasses.
Oh, I didn't think that at all. I mean, I guess maybe I should have.
Yeah, like what killer in a movie would have glasses,
Yeah, he's wearing a ski mask. Yeah, because he's wearing a ski mask and he has the glasses on, like, over the ski, like the, whatever you call them, the side pieces are, like, stuck in the eye holes, but he's wearing the glasses. It didn't occur to me, but very good of you for noticing, because it's important. Because then he comes upstairs and he corners Sloane and Jessica and the guy that Jessica was trying to hook Sloane up with, and he kills the guy. And then it's very typical of these kind of Christmas horror movies that family who have been fighting and bickering the whole time now have to have one another's back and protect one another, which is exactly what happens. And Jessica protects Sloane, and I feel like Jessica even takes a knife to the side. She's okay. Sloane, the bad girl one, bests this bad guy and kills him. And Jessica's like, what's going on? And Sloane's like, I don't know. And why she would do this, I don't know, but whatever. She takes off the guy's glasses and puts them on, and then it's this twist that there's no way you could see it coming.
No.
And this is why I think that they really maybe could make this into an actual feature. It turns out that this guy, these glasses, when Sloane puts them on, she looks at Jessica, and Jessica is a demon. And she looks around at all of the people who have been slain at the party, and they are all demons. So apparently this guy was like on a demon hunting, whatever you would call it. I don't know. I feel like I maybe missed something, because you don't see Chris, the husband, die on screen, and I just kind of thought that we had seen him die off screen. But then Sloane, the bad one, opens up the basement door, and Chris apparently had been on the other side of it and goes flying down the door. Did it turn out that he was not a demon and that's why he not got killed? Is that what I saw?
I think what happened, if I interpreted it correctly, and I had to rewind it and look at it, but what she was seeing through the heads-up display, I think, was a video game.
Oh.
It was like an augmented reality video game like we're supposed to be seeing here really soon, where, it mixes in other stuff with reality, and he just was taking it so seriously that he was going around and actually killing people, but the game was putting, demon faces on them.
Well, that would make perfect sense and also be even maybe more clever.
Yeah, otherwise it would be a little more like They Live, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, and that actually was, I thought, brought up some really interesting thoughts. I mean, we do have this kind of technology coming. We've seen demos of it.
Yeah.
Magic Leap, and Microsoft has one, and there's all these things coming. It's something like this could very well happen.
Sure.
Where a person either forgets they have their glasses on, or is just crazy enough that they mix the real world and the fake world, and they start seeing these things, and they start creating real havoc. It's kind of nuts when you think about it.
Well, and I think now, thinking back, that you're probably right, and I think that that's even more clever. Like, I really liked this one.
It was a good one.
The characters were interesting. The production value was good. It had that cool twist at the end.
Yeah. In fact, like you said, it could easily be developed into a full length, probably, and it would. It could go in different directions with that, and it almost makes the short feel a little rushed.
Mm-hmm.
And at some, like you said, it all happens pretty quickly. You don't want to see half an hour of this, but if it went off in some different directions or had some other characters in here, for sure, it would make a great premise for a full-length movie, I think.
Well, and what differentiates it from some of the other shorts that we've talked about is that the characters seem like they've got some depth to them. Like, we could spend more time with them and learn more about them and their history and their relationships. And I don't know. I dug it. All right, we got one more. Sleigh Bells. I won't. This one was not my favorite, but it was interesting.
Well, we thought we would end with the oddest one of the bunch. This one is definitely odd. And although it looks like it was put together with a lot of heart and has some surprisingly good makeup moments or whatnot in it, it is one of these that looks like it was shot on somebody's home video camera.
Yeah, it does.
In many ways. So as long as that doesn't distract you, it's really the story about a woman who, is she supposed to be a witch?
Okay, now I don't know what was going on with her. There's this woman, she's, totally suburbanite, blonde. She's dressed like Mrs. Claus. She's slim. She's beautiful. The thing that I didn't get, I don't know. I understand why you're asking that question, because she glides around everywhere.
Yes.
Like, she doesn't walk. She glides. Like, I don't know if they were pulling her on something or if she was like on a hoverboard or what. And there's even one point where, like, it almost seems, and it doesn't seem like a production mistake. It seems like it was part of the plot, but like her gliding apparatus like seems to get stuck at some point. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Yeah, and well, the whole short is filled with this sort of non sequitur, unstated comedy that's still kind of over the top. It's a little Naked Gun-esque in that way, right?
Yeah.
You're not really sure if it's ineptness or it's just total wacky out there, like a bunch of guys sat around and thought, oh, this will be good to throw in there. Why don't we throw this in? Or if it's all kind of cleverly planned to give this vibe, this level of, this layer of comedy to the movie that's just really out there. Because it gets more absurd. It's a very absurd.
It is.
Kind of movie and story, really.
And there's nothing wrong, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I did think it was clever in many ways. Okay, so there's this lady, and she's hosting Christmas, and at first I thought that it was her friends that were coming over, but you eventually realize that it's her family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's her mother and father and her younger sister who show up at the door, and I guess she must live with her either older sister or just younger sister. She, the main lady, she's hosting Christmas herself. It's just her Christmas, and she wants to make that perfectly clear. And everybody keeps asking about the other sister, like, well, isn't Amanda helping? Because Amanda's always so good at this kind of thing. And she's like, no, this is my Christmas. Eventually, there's kind of a confrontation in the kitchen where... And her sister seems very normal, very millennial, but at the same time, like, the main girl, whatever her name is, has, like, put in a turkey and stuff, and Amanda, the sister, is like, well, I took out your turkey because you weren't making any cupcakes, and how are you going to have Christmas without my special candy cane cupcakes? And the sister gets so angry that she kills Amanda. And then she wraps her up. She wraps her whole body in Christmas paper, and then brings it into the living room. People are like, "What's that?" And she's like, "Nothing." She's like, "It's pieces of Amanda. I mean, presents for Amanda." Like, it's so absurd and ridiculous, but funny at the same time. And then she's cleaning up the blood in the kitchen, and the brother comes in, and he's like, what are you cleaning up? She's like, oh, I dropped some jam. And he's like, oh, I love jam. And then there's this disgusting scene where he, like, sucks, like, the bloody jelly gross off her fingers, and like, ew. It's your sister, you grosso. But the whole thing is absurd like that.
It's like this.
And there are, you know, such silly lines like, where's Amanda? Well, she's a bit wrapped up at the moment. Like, just silly stuff like that. And then so the brother's like, is that the turkey? That's never going to cook in time. We need something more warm, more supple. And like, it goes on and on and on. And so she cooks up Amanda and serves it to them, and they're like, what is this? And I don't remember what she says, but it's something like, oh, it's an Australian turkey. Meanwhile, there is a human foot sitting on the table. Like, it's just so silly.
And then they ask, well, what's for dessert? She says, ginger snaps. And she looks over at one of the girls, and I guess she's ginger.
I guess. No, it wasn't even ginger snaps. Brandy snaps. Which surely are not even a real thing.
And then, you know, it's minutes later where...
she's killed the sister, yeah.
And she serves one disgusting... It's like a cookie wrapped around raw meat.
Yeah.
The mother tastes and's like, this is really good. It's just so... Oh, yeah. Again, it's like an absurdist play, this thing.
Yeah, and the main girl keeps saying to the mother, because at this point everybody else is dead. She's killed the dad for unexplained reasons. She's, or the brother, whoever it was. She's killed the sister to make the brandy snap. So everybody's dead except the mom. And she keeps saying to the mom, say it's the best Christmas ever. Say it's the best Christmas ever. And the mom starts to say it, but then she chokes. So the main girl throws her into a wheelbarrow, like she's going to take her to the hospital or whatever. And then this is where, like, the whole thing is so bizarre, but I really liked the twist at the end. Apparently something had happened that had driven the entire community crazy. So it wasn't just that this one girl had lost her mind. Something had happened that had caused everybody to lose their mind. So she's running the mom around in this wheelbarrow down the street. Meanwhile, everybody else in the neighborhood is murdering each other and, you know, just being totally Looney Tunes. Then the mom, a car hits the mom in the wheelbarrow. So the main girl goes back home, but she finds a Christmas card from her mom, and she opens it up, and it says, this was the best Christmas ever. And she's so happy. And then that's the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it was clearly very low budget. It seemed like an early effort from an aspiring filmmaker, but it was ambitious and it was clever, and you know, I liked it. I didn't enjoy it as much. I didn't think it was as well made as some of the other ones that we watched, but I liked it anyway.
I did too. I started out thinking I was going to hate it, and as it went on, I thought, oh, this is like, some 12-year-olds made a movie and thought this was funny. But the fact that it really stuck with it throughout, it really committed to this idea and this character and this just bizarre stuff that it was throwing at you up to the very, very end. I thought, okay, yeah, some minds went into this. They're going for a kind of absurdist thing here, and it actually cohesively sort of works. It doesn't entirely work, but it's fine. It's one of those like comedies where you have to suspend a lot of disbelief, where it's, people, of course, don't notice that people are dropping off and that there's suddenly only fewer people at the table and they don't even ask where they are. That kind of thing. Right. You just forget about it and go with it. And it's cute. It's definitely and why it's on this list is it's among some of the better ones we found out there. So
yeah, and we did watch other ones, some good, some not so good, but there really are so many available, and if you're into this kind of thing, I would say check them out. There's some fun stuff out there. You will you'll wade through some crap, but you will find some gems. And I, honest to God, I do. I go on YouTube and Vimeo. There are really good ones on Vimeo too, and there's some really good stuff out there. And I bet money that some of these aspiring filmmakers will make names for themselves, and we can go back and say we knew them when.
That's right. Maybe they'll call us in with a critique at their
Of course they will. I mean, why wouldn't they?
All right, well, Merry Christmas, everybody, and thank you for listening again to another episode. If you enjoyed this one, please share it with a friend. We have a lot more coming up, obviously. You can check out back episodes. We've done all holiday films this month, and if you haven't caught some of our earlier ones, like Red Christmas or Jack Frost, go back to our website at twoguys.red40net.com. and check out those as well. And like I said earlier, we will be posting links to the shorts that we reviewed here as well, so you can share in that as well. And if you do happen to find some other great Christmas shorts that we missed, please drop us a line at our Facebook page. Just search for Two Guys and a Chainsaw, and let us know what you found, and we'll go out and watch them as long as they're short enough. We've got the New Year coming up for you. We're big dorks, and we still like to try to find New Year's themed movies, so we're probably going to find another one for you this time around. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.